Well, currently I don't have a Twitter account, so that might give me a cause to.
I'm sorry. What's wrong with you?
I'm just not into the social media thing anymore. It's been about a year since I've logged into Facebook. I just got tired of all the
I fully
hogwash,
understand. Believe me, I fully understand. Unfortunately, I encourage people to do that, but the downside of it is you end up not knowing what in the world's going on and get blindsided by stuff. But anyways, that's not your subject. What's up?
Okay, so in our men's Bible study, we were going through the book of Titus, and in Titus 1:6, I seem to be in the minority that, as a requirement, according to Titus 1:6, you do have to be a married man with children to be an elder in a church. Everyone else seems to think that it is possible for a single man to be an elder in any capacity, whether they be a pastor or a teacher, but basically an elder in a church. You can be single. And I was just wondering what your thoughts, if you've ever heard of anything like that, any kind of commentator throughout history, or is that like a little bit too much eisegesis?
Well, let me see if you're consistent, because looking at Titus 1:6, do you also believe that you have to have children to be an elder?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is whenever he says above reproach, is kind of like a generalization above reproach, and then those are requirements that follow, or kind of like an explanation of above reproach. You have to be a husband of one wife. Your children are believers and not given to debauchery or. I don't have the text right in front of me, but I'm just going based off of what I remember from the text.
Okay, so
one argument was that all the other following requirements further down uses the word must. So it seems like what they were saying, what one person was saying was that because they don't use the word must in those first requirements, but they use the word must in those other requirements, and the further down the passage, it doesn't seem to be quite as concrete of a requirement for a person, a single man, to be an elder.
So, but searching for consistency here. So you have to be married, and you have to have older children. So just having young kids isn't enough, because how can you know if they believe? Right. So these are the only people that. So that would disqualify Timothy, wouldn't it?
That's what I was saying. I was saying the same thing about Paul, and the fact that is Paul an exception because of his apostolic authority? Because I believe, we believe that Paul was never married, or he was at least a widow.
Yeah. No, this is, my position is that the point is that if you are called to the eldership, if any man is above reproach, that's one. If you are married, you're the husband of one wife. If you have children, they are, and by the way, I've got a whole, when pistah is used here, look at the parallel in 1 Timothy. And I think it would be completely inappropriate, because it leads to some incredible theological issues, to say, what if you have an Absalom in your family? That's by God's elective decree. So what you're saying is, that means that even if you fulfill everything else, unless God saves your children, every single one of them, that you cannot be an elder in the church. I think that pistah, faithful in Titus 1:6, look at the parallel in 1 Timothy, under control. That is, they're not given to dissipation, not in rebellion. They're under your control as long as they're in your household. But I've known many a godly minister that served in the church and did so to the great benefit of God's people, who, while their children were in the home, disciplined them and kept them in control, and so on and so forth. When those children became adults, they did not make a profession of faith. They weren't rebellious in the home. The man showed the ability to keep his children under control in his home, but once they became adults, they did not. Not all bets are off, but they did not profess faith in Christ, and they just lived a normal pagan life, I guess you might say. And the question is there a promise in Scripture given to any of us that all of your children are going to be heirs of salvation? I mean, this raises a whole huge area that basically you have somehow have to know God's elective decree, which I've argued for a long, long time. That's one of the major problems of hyper-Calvinism, is that it assumes you can know God's elective decree, and you can't. So my understanding of this text, and yes, there are others who have taken that position, is that if you are a man above reproach, and obviously even at that point, you're not talking about sinlessly perfect, or there would be no elders, as
Right.
any of us who are elders know that. If you are married to one woman, and not just polygamy there. I think that extends beyond that. Having faithful children, that doesn't mean that they are all elect or they're all making profession of faith, but you run your home in such a way that your children are in control, and they are not rebellious, and they're not lighting the church on fire or lighting other people on fire, whatever it is. Not
They're
accused of
obedient.
exactly, not accused of dissipation or rebellion, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't see, and in fact, the word "must" in 1:7, it is necessary. But Daigar, I would not see that as somehow making what comes in 7 more important that's in 1:6. I don't buy that argument. But I also do not believe that, given that Paul even said to the Corinthians, given the day, it is better if you not marry. That would leave Corinth without any elders in the future if they all believed that. So
That is a good point.
Yeah, I don't see that as the issue. What I see is that if you've made that commitment, that it needs to be to that one woman, and if that results in children, which are considered a blessing from God, then you need to have them under control, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, that makes everything. When you said that, it is better for you to not marry. Then that is a very solid justification for a single man, an unmarried man at least, to be an elder in a church.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. There are people who are going to disagree with me about that. I think the single state is not normative in most situations. I don't think it was normative in Corinth. There are those who, however, are given the gift of singleness, and they want to be dedicated to the service of Christ. And if they have the other gifts that are necessary to be able to function in that way, I'm a stick in the mud. Most Reformed Baptists, I was raised in non-Reformed Baptist contexts, and we were basically told, hey, if you feel led, if it's up to you to feel the calling. And Reformed Baptists go, no, you go to the elders of the church you're in, and you say, I want to know if you believe, if my elders believe, that I should pursue training in ministry and set myself apart to this kind of activity, and ask others. Because in many Baptist circles, it's almost like, once you say, I feel it, it's sacrosanct. I mean, you can't question that. And I'm going to tell you something. I've seen people in a pulpit where I really wish their elders had questioned that, because it was self-evident that they had not been given the gifts to be able to teach and to be able to refute those who contradict, and the whole 9 yards. So that raises a whole nother area. And so a person who is single needs to recognize that there are going to be certain. This is why I believe in a plurality of elders, by the way, because I'm so thankful that I'm a part of a church with a plurality of elders, because there are things that the other elders can do better than I can, and there are things I can do better than they can. And so, because of that plurality, then we can meet the needs of the sheep better. And a single man,
I believe that too.
Yeah.
I believe in a plurality of elders. I think it's the only biblical model, and that's one of the reasons why my church, we just started about 6 or 7 months ago, we left the Calvary Chapel because of their Mosaic model.
I was gonna say, let's not get into the Moses model.
That's how they typically are, though.
I know.
If that's what they want to do, what do? You either cause division and complain about it, or you leave in peace and love and go start your own thing.
I really appreciate you saying leaving in peace and love, because that's the way it needs to be done. When you leave a church, you've got to leave it with a clear conscience, and if you do so with grace. Let me tell you something, and this is not what you're asking, but let me tell you something. Whenever I have had someone come into our church who included in their testimony the obvious reality that they had really hard feelings toward their former church, frequently, put into the context of non-Calvinistic, they criticized me for my beliefs. Okay, that may be, but that always worries me, and most of those folks have not stuck around because unless you were just treated like a royal heretic and it was a cult or something like that, be thankful for what the Lord did for you while you were there. Pray for those folks, but good grief, don't have animosity in your heart, because I think that can come with you into the fellowship that you're going to. And it's interesting. One of the questions we ask everyone who is applying for membership at our church is, do you bear improper feelings toward any member of this church? Before you join, those things have to be dealt with. And we've never had anyone say yes, but we've always asked. And I think I would also recommend to people, and if you have feelings toward your former church, ask God to take them away, to just simply thank God for what He did while you were there and move on, because I just don't think it's helpful to anybody.
Yeah.
So how's that? Is that good?
Yes, sir. And I just wanted to say thank you, and I want to bless you for your